Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bob.
It's great to be with you this glorious fall day. A few days ago, or even a few weeks ago, I was thinking, is fall ever going to come? And it was a glorious drive-in this morning, seeing all the orange and the red and the yellow. Of course, pretty soon we'll see another glorious color, white. Last week, we talked about how each of us is supernatural. We have much more power than we could ever have imagined. This power comes from combining modern science and ancient wisdom. During the message, we examined how using the energy centers of our body can help us to heal. Then we learned how to become free from the past by reconditioning our body. And finally, we discovered how we can create reality in the present moment by changing our energy. In preparing for today's message, I didn't realize how much biology and medicine I would have to be talking about today. So I may have to call Marianne up here to help me in a few moments. But it's interesting that a lot of our abilities to be supernatural actually comes from certain body parts, especially those related to the brain. And we're going to be talking about that this morning. In today's message, we'll consider 3 additional areas that prove that we are indeed supernatural. We'll look at the difference between 3rd dimension creation and 5th dimension creation. There is a tendency to focus on creating from the material, and we're going to actually be talking about creating from intention today. Secondly, we'll explore the ability to access mystical realms of reality. We will actually talk about how the brain basically can help us to tap into our natural ability to be mystical. In truth, we are all mystics. Finally, we'll distinguish between space-time and time-space realities. Appreciating time lets us feel the fabric of reality. We will learn how meditation also can help us become part of this new reality. And there's a lot of good information, and I will mention it to you as I proceeded my message today, various YouTube interviews. Some of the material I'm presenting this morning is based on the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Dr. Dispenza actually wrote a book called Becoming Supernatural, and he has some pretty good interviews on YouTube, and you may want to take a look at that, especially as they relate to time and space. The first area we're going to be looking at this morning is 3rd dimension creation versus 5th dimension creation. Life, in many ways, is created from these 2 different levels or dimensions. These are referred to by Dr. Joe Dispenza and others as the 3rd and 5th dimensions of creation. The approach to creation and manifestation in these two dimensions is actually very, very different. We're all going to be pretty familiar with the 3rd dimension of creation. It's something that we probably have experienced on a daily basis. It's pretty well known in the world that we live in that this is the acceptable way to get something that we want. The 3rd dimension of creation is based on the material world that we live in. Our physical actions are what create what we are trying to bring into our life. So we decide that we need a new job. So what do? Probably everyone in this room probably knows what to do already, even before you came to Unity. The traditional way of getting a job is to send out resumes or put in applications. Ultimately, we'll get an interview, and possibly in a few months we'll get hired and we'll have a new job. That is 3rd dimension creation. Let's give another example. You're preparing for your retirement. You want to have a good return on your investment income so that you will have money coming in during the time that you are retired. You might investigate what stocks are out there, what companies are profitable, and what kind of dividends they are paying. Again, another example of third dimension creation. Something that people outside of Unity do all the time. Some of us undoubtedly still do it. And of course, this is something we probably did even before we came into Unity as well too. Very common. All of us undoubtedly know this. Our physical actions produce our outcomes in this dimension of creation. But how about the fifth dimension of creation? It's very, very different. In the fifth dimension, creation does not require you to do anything or to take any action. What you need comes to you. You don't have to go after it. That is a much different philosophical approach to being successful in life. It starts with the setting of an intention. The intention draws what you need to it. And it's also important that your heart be in alignment with your clear intention. It creates an energy from the elevated emotions that you are experiencing. You draw to yourself what you need like a magnet. You draw your good to you from the universe. I know this past spring, the Unity of Northern Ohio put on a heart math workshop up in the Cleveland area. I think Rachel attended, if I'm not mistaken. And this is very similar to what was learned when you deal with heart math, or if you do some studies through the Heart Math Institute, where your heart plays a role in drawing things to you as well too. And that's something that it's important to keep in mind. This is consistent also with what the Bible says in Matthew 6 and verse 8. There it reads, "Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." Whether we replace the word Father or God with universe, it really doesn't matter. But if we are tuned in, into fifth dimension creation, we will bring to us what we need without having to pursue it. Something that's very important. And of course, this is confirmed by what Jesus said here at Matthew 6:8. All of us have the Christ within us. Our inner Christ has the power to know what we need and the experiences we must have in order to grow and prosper. Everything that happens in our life, we experience because we need it. That's what helps us to grow. The inner Christ lets us live from the fifth dimension. Our brain and heart are in sync as we co-create our life with the universe. The second area we're going to explore this morning is accessing the mystical realms of reality. Our supernatural self has the ability to access this mystical realm. Within our physiological structure, the stimulation of the right temporal lobe of the brain has led to patients reporting spiritual experiences, such as seeing God, leaving their bodies, hearing music, and seeing those that have made their transitions. Studies have also shown connections between the temporal lobes and mystical experiences. So actually, within our own physiology, there is a basis for having mystical experiences. Another part of the body associated with spiritual awakening, higher consciousness, and mysticism is the pineal gland. The pineal gland is located in the center of the brain and is above the pituitary gland. The pineal gland has a long history of being connected with spirituality. Never thought of a part of your body being connected with spirituality. but actually there are studies that show this. The shape of the pineal gland has been found in ancient Egyptian artifacts associated with enlightenment and immortality. So as far back as ancient Egypt, the connection of the pineal gland to spiritual experiences has been known. Many spiritual traditions also associate the opening of the third eye with the pineal gland. The pineal gland also produces melatonin. Melatonin is known as an anti-aging and anti-stress agent. Melatonin has an impact on the spiritual experience. It has the ability to quiet the body and mind. And it's interesting to know this is produced when we put ourselves into a meditative state. So melatonin is actually produced when we successfully are able to meditate. It also allows us to have access to higher consciousness. Other chemicals in the pineal gland can cause a change in perception, mood, consciousness, cognition, and behavior. Chemicals produced in the process also can produce vision and dream states, which is quite interesting. So actually our own inner body chemicals can put us at a mystical realm of consciousness. The Bible is full of stories about visions. And one that caught my attention was the story of the Transfiguration. Some of us may be familiar with that story, and I'm going to read it. It's from Matthew chapter 17 and verses 1 through 8. And there we read, "After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, 'Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah.' While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, 'This is my Son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him.' When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. 'Get up,' he said. 'Don't be afraid.' When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus." I would suggest there's a possibility that the apostles in this situation had a vision. They also suggested, as some of the medical literature suggests, that one may see those that have departed this earthly plane as well. Something to definitely to keep in mind. Some of the chemicals produced by the pineal gland are evident when one enters a state of deep meditation. And it's something to think about in the future. Our whole body is actually working with us many times to help us to have those spiritual experiences. These chemicals can also be found in near-death experiences, visionary experiences, and dreams. Our pineal gland has been clearly associated with entering mystical realms of consciousness. So a lot of times when somebody tells you, well, the body really has no purpose, the body has a lot of purpose. Of course, we not only learn lessons through our physical body, we actually have parts of the body that help us to dive deep into mysticism. The last area we're going to be talking about this morning are space-time and time-space realities. Once again, space-time and time-space realities are also affected by the pineal gland. Science has shown that that humans are only aware of 1% of the realities that actually exist. That's interesting. There's so much talk about what's real out there, but yet actually science shows we only can comprehend or understand 1% of the reality at any one time. The pineal gland also can act as a sort of time travel machine. That's quite interesting. It can let us experience altered states of consciousness. This may mean that we experience different times. What we know as past and future simultaneously many times collapses. Some of us recognize these ideas as part of what's known as quantum reality. We've heard a lot of talk in Unity and elsewhere about quantum science. If you get an opportunity sometime during the course of the week, I would Google Dr. Joe Dispenza and an interview dealing with time-space reality. He does approximately a 50-minute interview with a Seattle news reporter, and he talks about how he saw himself at a younger age, when he was only 7 or 8 years old. And then he saw himself in the future. Time and space had actually collapsed for him. It can happen for us as well too. We always think of time being linear, going straight forward. In the quantum field, time is all occurring at the same time. That's hard to comprehend if we don't have a scientific background. I'm up here acting like I'm the expert on it, and I'm not either. But that's what, in Unity and New Thought, we'd like to think about. Some new ideas about what life really is.
Now, how do you spell his name? It's Dr. Joseph.
Dispenza. Dispenza. He's written a number of books. My message today is in part based on his book Becoming Supernatural, but he's also written books about the placebo effect and a number of other things as well too. And he's appeared in some of the New Thought magazines as well. Time and space and time collapse when we simultaneously experience all events in life. In this world, we view time as, like I said, a linear experience. In the world, our world views the linear experience as what is really happening. It views the linear experience as reality. What I am suggesting is the linear experience is only one of many possible realities that exists. In the quantum field, time is not linear. Rather, time is experienced from a linear perspective when we believe in the separation of life. And that's kind of interesting. When we view life as I'm separate from the person sitting next to me, or I'm separate from the person that's driving in front of me, that's a belief in separation. When we actually believe that we're one, that is when we have the opportunity to have some of these mystical experiences that we are talking about. But there is another reality. That reality a lot of times is based on our vibration or frequency. The higher our vibration or frequency becomes, the more realities we are able to access. Think of it from a radio. When you flip the radio, what happens? You hear different radio stations. The same thing happens here as well. When our frequency or vibration changes, we access different realities. We access different channels. And sometimes it's mind-boggling, to say the least. But as I just said a moment ago, the past, present, and future are actually all happening at the same time. And that's sometimes hard to comprehend. But in the quantum world, that is a principle. The pineal gland acts as a sort of antenna to pick up different frequencies and vibrations. So again, we have an antenna in our body that allows us to go to another level, to go to a mystical reality. And that's something that's, again, something a lot of us may find hard to fathom. There are infinite possibilities in the quantum field, and this results in multiple realities. This contrasts with what is known as the fourth dimension. We go beyond time in the fifth dimension. That's why it sounds so complex. We structure our world based on time. Oh, it's 11:45 right now. But there's no time in the fifth dimension. In this dimension, time is endless. We actually become pure awareness. We become pure consciousness. This timeless state is also referred to in the Bible. Psalm 90, verse 4. There we read, 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. So the perception of reality can be different. This is a description of how God views time. Reality is much different. We co-create our reality, and we can access other forms of reality as well. I ask this question a lot when I talk. Why does this matter? This might be interesting from a theoretical point of view or a viewpoint of talking about different theories out there, but how does this matter in our own personal life? When we attain this timeless state, we feel pure love, oneness, and awareness. We talked earlier that a lot of times we cannot imagine other realities because we believe in separation. Would you all agree, regardless of what you think, that we have a lot of separation in our world today? Separation. Mm-hmm. And because of that separation, we are not able to actually see that we are one. This can also lead to spontaneous healing in our life and those of others. There have actually been, as a result of using some of the techniques that I've talked about that was developed by Dr. Dispenza, of basically spontaneous remissions of cancer. We've only touched the surface, and he's doing a lot of good research in that area. In our physical world, we have the capacity to be supernatural. It's built right into us. We have an antenna that can tell us and expose us to the many different realities that exist. As we become more aware of our supernatural capabilities, we attain the love and healing we all desire as we create a better world that works for all of us. Namaste. thoughts or concerns of the day. Your feet planted firmly on the floor in front of you. Your eyes gently closed. With an open mind, I stretch to new dimensions of awareness. The great jurist Oliver Wendell Holmes once said that a mind once stretched never regains its original dimensions. I allow my mind to be stretched as I think of all that God is. My open mind lets in the light of God to illuminate my perceptions and beliefs. I practice spiritual discernment as I become aware there is more to life than meets the eye. I see God in action in a sunrise, in the face of a child, in my life's work, and in all my activities. I see God in me in new ways. I am more forgiving and less judgmental. I am more accepting of others. I develop greater understanding by seeing from many perspectives. With an open mind, I stretch to new dimensions of spiritual awareness. I trust in the power of God within me. In times of challenge, I trust the spiritual faculties I derive from God mind. I pray affirmatively, focusing on the divine quality that I wish to activate. Whatever I feel I need has already been supplied. Do I need wisdom, faith, love, or will? Do I wish to express understanding or right judgment? These qualities are already mine. I activate my spiritual faculties through the power of my words. I am able to express them easily. Whatever the circumstance, I am certain of the life, light, and love of God within me and within all people. Spiritual insight, strength, courage. These are the blessings of a God-centered life. Now we will enter 2 minutes of silence, as with an open mind, we examine our own spiritual faculties.